everybody. Bruce, I'm the co-chair of the committee, and I'd like to open the meeting so that we can get on to the business of advocating.
Okay. You got to call the meeting to order.
And so now the meeting here is called to order.
Yay! All right. Thank you very much. Good, sir. All right. So, first name?
Hello, I'm Daniel.
Hi, I'm Kat. I'm the secretary.
Thank you, my name is Gary. I'm on the board of directors.
My name is Ron.
My name is Jennifer. I'm a member of the COC and a member of the Lived Experience Advisory Committee.
Romeo.
Mary was at Pinellas Park and Safe Harbor last year.
No Wagner, Pinellas Park, member of LEAC committee.
Matt.
Melody?
Ruben, resident of Pinellas County.
Nick. Mario, and I'm the special projects coordinator for the utility.
I'm really excited. He's here to make my life a little easier. And I'm Victoria. All right. And then, of course, Daisy is online. And Rick
Hello,
Cipriani-
everybody. Daisy Korea.
Hey, Daisy. And then Rick Cipriani should also be joining us online as well at some point. So thank you all for being here. I am. Did you have a presentation for us? Plug in? Okay. So if you'll give me that, I'll work on that. You go ahead and introduce yourself. I'm going to hand it over to Mr. Nick Carey here. Nick is a member of the Homeless Leadership Alliance Board of Directors. He is also an incredible local advocate with Faith in Florida. And he's also running for city council in St. Petersburg. So he knows a lot about advocacy. And I'm really excited to have him here talking to us about what advocacy means and how we can work on advocating as committees.
Hey y'all, really happy to be here with y'all. I'm sorry that I haven't, it's been a little while since I've been here with y'all. Y'all have definitely grown in numbers, and that's really exciting to see. And I'm really excited to see that y'all are on this journey of preparing yourselves to advocate for the things that you already know that you need, because you're the ones who have the experience. And so honestly, y'all are the ones that we most need to be listening to, because y'all are the experts, right? So
Oh, you don't have a HDMI. Did you announce to me?
I didn't know. I thought
No, there is. Nick's computer doesn't have it.
I might have it adapted.
Oh. If you want, you can email it to me. I can pull it up right here.
Switch things around.
Real quick, anybody who hasn't signed in,
Is that the agenda sheet?
no, this is a sign-in sheet.
Yeah, the sign.
Oh, okay, well, they said it.
Thank you. All right, everybody, give us just a minute. I'm going to get Nick's presentation pulled up for us.
And this is my friend Dylan. Here's my colleague at Faith in Florida. I got caught up in traffic a little bit. And he is going to help me lead this training as well. If I'm being 100% honest with you, Dylan created this training and I'm stealing it from him because he did a great job.
Thanks, Dylan.
Thank you.
You emailed it to me, right?
Sure. Should
If so, you can just join the camera. I can share a screen.
The COC.
I'll work on getting that.
advocacy.
Run through, and I'll work on this.
It's a Zoom.
Okay, so I'm here to talk about advocacy. Another term for advocacy is lobbying. Who's heard the term lobbying before? Cool. So what have you heard? What do you think of when you hear of the word lobbying or advocacy?
Getting things done.
Getting things done?
Greed right now.
Greed.
So when they talk, it's.
Yeah. Anyone else?
Challenging events.
Okay, okay. Anyone else?
Related to it, or quid pro quo?
Quid pro quo.
Friend helping friend.
Yeah. So we can kind of tell from the answers in here that lobbying or advocacy itself is actually neutral, but it can be used for good and it can be used for bad. The joke I use is that when I think of lobbying, I think of a guy dressed up as the Monopoly man, like handing money under a table to an elected official. But it doesn't always have to be bad. Lobbying can be used for good when people are using it to get more rights, to make people's lives better, all of that. So, some examples of lobbying. Is anyone familiar with what's called a community benefits agreement in St. Petersburg? We got one. You want to tell us about it a little bit? You don't have to. So community benefits agreement is, it's an example of how lobbying works to get processes that would work for people. Essentially, the idea behind the community benefits agreement is that if a certain amount of public money is going to be spent in St. Petersburg given to private developers, then those private developers have to go through a process and they need to prove what benefits are the community going to receive for it. That St. Petersburg is one of the only cities in the state that has that type of agreement, and it was hard won by people going and lobbying and advocating. There's one most people are probably familiar with, the Civil Rights Act in the 60s, or the Voting Rights Act in the 60s, right? The whole civil rights movement was kind of a movement of advocacy, asking for things from their elected officials. Another more recent example is the Affordable Care Act, recently in 2017, also known as Obamacare. So when we talk about lobbying, we're talking about deliberate action to persuade a decision maker to act in your favor. So we use a bunch of political examples, but Dylan used an example the other day that I really loved. Him and his siblings lobbying their parents to allow them to stay up and play Mario Kart a little bit later on a school night. That's another form of lobbying or advocacy. Yeah.
Learning young.
Some money might have exchanged hands. There's no telling. So when we think about lobbying or advocacy, we think of targets, essentially. And by targets, it's like, who is that lobbying or that advocacy directed at? And so the first and most simple is a direct target. So I think one of the reasons why we're calling that Victoria asked me to come and lead this training is because of the anti-camping legislation that just happened in Tallahassee, right? So in this case, elected officials would be the target of our lobbying. We want them to change that law. We want them to make that law work for people who are experiencing homelessness. Right now, it doesn't do that. Appointed leaders. In some local governments especially, so like this is a good example. In St. Petersburg, our mayor is an elected position. He runs the city administration. But in most other places in Pinellas County, there's a city manager. That person is appointed by the city council to run the administration. So I know Jennifer's done advocacy work in Clearwater. They have a city manager system, so there are elected officials, but there's also appointed officials. There are also boards and committees that you can talk to. I'm gonna refer to St. Pete a lot because that's where I live and that's where I'm just a little more familiar with. But there's all kinds of boards and committees within the city government, sometimes in volunteer positions. That community benefits agreement that I told you about, there's an appointed council that is supposed to hear and weigh the benefits from the developer of any specific project. That's an example of a board or a committee there. Indirect targets. So think of this as, these are the people that decision makers might listen to. So, you know, we were talking about lobbying a little bit. We were talking about greed. I made a joke about the monopoly man. Someone who gives a campaign contribution to our elected officials, they might be an indirect target. Another example, does an elected official, is he part of a religious group? Is there a pastor or a rabbi or an imam that that person might listen to? Are they just part of a club? You know, are they part of the Elks Lodge? And you know some folks from the Elks Lodge that they might listen to and interact with.
Are they more dedicated to another country?
I'm not gonna get into that.
I'm Jennifer.
Yeah.
I'm Jennifer A. Coffee and I say uncomfortable.
Sorry.
So that, like I was saying, it just might be people that they listen to. It's people who maybe aren't making the decision themselves, but it's people that they're close to. Like, I'll be honest, if somebody wants to influence me, they might go and talk to my wife. They know that I listen to what my wife has to say. I care about what she has to say. And so that type of person is going to influence me. Oh, I'm going to come around here.
Oh, it's actually on my phone.
Can you go to the slide that says, how do we lobby?
In theory, I'm right now frozen on what have you heard?
Okay. That's totally okay. We might be a little behind on this. Okay. So one of the important things about lobbying is generally we want it to be strategic. We want it to be part of a larger campaign. And that's why I think it's so great that we have this advisory committee, because it's less about what are we angry about today, and it's about what do we need, what stands in our way, and what's our strategy to convince people to get the things that we need in our community.
Sorry, I have to have a cup of coffee.
You are totally okay. Some of the things that different actors, our targets might respond to, right? Politicians are oftentimes more likely to respond to public opinion. Public opinion is part of what helps get them elected, right? You know, if someone has a negative image, they're less likely to get the votes to win a re-election or to get an election in the first place. Bureaucrats, so that could be like the city staff or the county staff or administrators who work. They might be more susceptible to forms of disruption. Sometimes it takes a little bit of protest to get what we want. I think we're mostly going to talk in like a advocacy space more than like a direct action space. Or corporations, these corporations who might fund some of these campaigns, they respond to a loss of profit. So an example of a type of form of public pressure on a corporation might be a boycott if you are not a fan of something that they're doing. So some of the ways that we apply pressure is we can overwhelm public input opportunities. I'm sure y'all have talked about this a little bit, but pretty much any body of government, it's the same in Tallahassee, same in St. Petersburg, Pinellas County commissioners, they pretty much all have a public comment process. And the standard comment in most places is that you can come and you can speak for 3 minutes about a topic that you care about. And that's probably what we'll focus on most here today. Like, I'm fine to go like without this, but okay. So other leverage points are just publicly asking tough questions and making bold demands. So that can happen within the halls of government. It can happen outside the halls. It can be doing an interview for TV or with the newspaper, something that is public that people are going to see.
I also want to pop in here. The reason why they included corporations and bureaucrats in this is because even though they don't offer the same types of public input opportunities like public hearings or open forum, you can still target them and pass on your questions, your demands through showing up in public spaces. So that's the press, that can be church services, right? It can be your institutions, so schools and clubs, right? So even though, you know, Florida Crystals isn't having like, hey, everybody, come talk to us about our sugar practices and burning sugarcane, even though they're not creating those opportunities for you, you can talk about those in public spaces. And, you know, since their profit is really dear to them and their reputation is dear to them, the word travels, right? So just want to point out that even without public input opportunities in corporations and in other boards and committees, you can still lobby and advocate from afar as long as you do it in a public space.
Cool. Thank you, John.
Of course.
You can also call them directly.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Another form of lobbying and advocacy is calling them directly, setting up a meeting where, in Florida, all of that is technically public record, any notes they take, any emails you send or calls you make. But it's still a little more intimate of a setting. And one of the things that we try to practice at Beta Florida is building relationships with elected officials, regardless of whether they agree with us. Because think about it this way, is you're working at your job and someone out of the blue comes and tells you what they don't like about what you're doing, versus someone saying, hey, could we have a meeting? I want to chat about some things that like I don't necessarily agree with, like let's have a conversation, right? We're going to be a little more receptive to someone that is trying to build a relationship with me, regardless of whether they agree with everything that I'm doing. It's a good opportunity to know that people respond better when there's an existing relationship there. So how do we make an argument? One of the most basic things to assess, and this might happen in some of your early meetings with people, is do they agree with us or do they disagree with us? Are they an ally of ours or are they an opponent? Because there is use in talking to the people who agree with us, but if we're only talking to the people who agree with us ever, how are we going to change anything, right? And so I want to say like opponent is like a very adversarial word. It doesn't, we just use it in like a way to illustrate what we're talking about. It does not mean that they are the enemy. It just means that they stand on a different side of ours. What is that person's perspective? So y'all have a very unique perspective that is not often heard in the halls of government. And it's important that your perspective and your experience be shared. And at the same time, it's important to realize that the people that we're wanting to make decisions may have a different perspective. They definitely have a different set of experiences. Like, quite frankly, there are far too few elected officials who have experienced things like homelessness. And that's part of the reason why we're in the, why we have some of the problems that we do now. And so it's important. I come from a background in science. Before I was an organizer, I was a chemist. And so I like facts and figures, I like numbers. But something I quickly learned when I got more involved in the community is that people respond to stories and experience and narratives much more than they do a pie chart, right? Did you have a question?
You know,
Yeah.
you're saying things that they're not listening. You're right, some people say Pete. I'm saying the same Pete, because I was raised in the same.
Yeah.
They don't have a cap on any of their rentals. Why? If that's supposed to be on the list, then there should have been a cap. I mean, I've lived here for almost nearly 30 years. And I remember going into a place and I can rent a place for like $550. Now, with just a one bedroom for any one of us,
Yeah.
it's $13.50.
Yeah.
Plus 3 times the rent. I don't make that.
Right. I would argue that it's because your elected officials are much more likely to be a landlord than a renter, is part of the problem. So, and one of the things that Faith in Florida was part of advocating for was rent control, a cap on rent in St. Pete. Ultimately, the governor and the state legislature stepped in and made it illegal for local governments to implement those sorts of things. I'm happy to have a longer conversation of the reasons as to why, but I appreciate you bringing that up.
I'm here. I would put, everyone, Florida.
Yeah. You want to do this like example?
Yeah. And what was your name?
My name is Dolores.
Dolores, nice to meet you. I'm Dylan. I just want to say that was a really good question and it's super on topic because the reason, the way that the Florida legislature and the state government and even our city council was able to overcome the will of the people was through a collective lobby, right? So people that have a stake in rent control, landlords, property managers, realtor boards, people that would lose money or they perceive themselves losing money from rent control did what we're trying to train ourselves to do today, right? They lobbied their council members, some of them flew in all the way from like Miami, all over the state to come and try and stand in the way of this. So it's really, I'm glad you pointed that out, it's super relevant. So we have here, after you make these assessments of, where does the council member stand, right? Where does the commissioner stand? Where does the mayor stand on this thing? And you understand their perspective, right? Including, like Nick said, whether they're part of a faith tradition, race, gender, things like that. Once you factored in that perspective, you want to let those assessments guide your argument. So if someone is, let's say somebody like me, right? Young, Black, Gen Z, you don't want to come at me with probably like an outdated argument or something that won't resonate very well with my community. But that might be different if you're lobbying somebody older or somebody of a different faith tradition or a different race, right? So Nick said it, it's really important that we use storytelling as much as we can when we're making these arguments and combining them with facts. So I have an example here. If you go to a county commissioner and say, did you realize that your new budget plan is leaving out this really important program? Last year, it was the only way my partner could get medicine for his condition. We need you to create a plan to address this, and how can we help? So right off the bat, we're making an assessment of their position and their perspective, which is, we've read their budget program and we don't like it, right? Those are the facts. And then our story is, something that you're doing in the halls of government is interfering with my life and you have the power to change it, right? So together, how can we collaborate to make sure that this can't happen to the people that I love or to anyone that comes after us? And it gives us an opportunity to sort of, fence with the city and engage with, local politics without becoming too swallowed up in what they have to do. Because remember, it's their responsibility to take care of residents, right? They're here, they're elected and appointed and paid in service of you, right? So I wouldn't go to the commissioner and say, did you realize that your budget plan misses these bars and needs these tweaks, and data shows and studies show that X amount of people won't be able to get healthcare if X amount of terms are applied? No. We have a problem with the budget. This is how it affects me and my community. How can we work together to make sure this problem is mitigated? Does that make sense? So on your story, on your position, have your review of the facts, but don't get too caught up in trying to do their job for them, right? Make sure they put in the work as well.
just want to bring up the elephant in the room here. Government was never supposed to ever be involved in taking care of people. That's always been the job of the church. And that's where we have a lot of these problems that are coming in, because government is making money off of all these problems. Homelessness is definitely something they make money on.
Right.
Drugs are definitely something they make money on. But I have to look at the other side of it too. I've been a renter for quite a few years. And my property manager gives me responsibilities around the house I live in. The reason she does that is because she knows I'm going to take care of things. I've had other renters in my house who have destroyed things because they were alcoholics, because they were mentally challenged. And I can see both sides of the situation. But the problem becomes that when you're lobbying these people, most of them don't care. I mean, it's got to be, we've got to go street level. We've got to be able to sit there and make them understand. I work with the St. Pete Dream Center. I've been with the St. Pete Dream Center about 6 or 8 years now. But the St. Pete Dream Center is stagnant right now, because the man who was operating that for years was able to do a lot of good. But it also destroyed his family, because he was spending his time with the homeless and doing everything he could do to help people and try to get them into places. The one thing that we need right now, if you want to lobby for something, we need homes for homeless. We need places for them to be.
Right there, right.
Because if they're gonna sit there and say, okay, well, you can't sleep on a park bench. Okay, that's what we've got to go for right now.
Exactly.
And they.
A
they
place
refuse
to
do
sleep.
that.
And we're not talking these facilities that we have out here that are really torture chambers for anybody who's homeless.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna get you in 1 second, Zulus. Thank you so much for sharing that. I think this is very important. It's really important for 2 reasons what you brought up. And one of which we're gonna get more into today, and one that we could have hours and hours of training on, and I'd be happy to help lead some of that as well. And so the first is, people aren't listening to the experiences that we have. And one of the things that we need to do is get more people, like you said, go to the street level,
Public
right? Organize other people, and I feel like that's part of what this group is doing
I
too.
see that also.
Similar people who have experienced homelessness to be able to speak to this experience. And the thing I want to say is that no one can take the experience that you've had away from you.
Right.
Y'all are all experts in being unhoused. You have lived it. A lot of us have not. And so you're right. The battle is to get people to pay attention to us. And what we're talking about is one of the tools to hopefully try and have more folks listen to us. Dolores.
I asked Pinellas Department, okay, specifically Office of Culture, I know a lot of people know the Office of Culture. Okay, I asked them if we can't sit on the park benches or even in an area where you cannot be seen. Is there any campsites? Oh, Fort DeSoto. Well, people can't go all the way down to Fort DeSoto. That's way too far.
Yeah.
On bicycles.
Right.
And
Especially.
the affordable, even the KOA, it used to be a campsite, you can just go and get 10 and pay like $10 for a week. It's not like that, it's $200 and some odd dollars just to get in there. Why can't they set up a campsite? And I don't mean tent city neither, because that's below. Okay, I've been there. I've been to the shore, whatever, by the jail. They run it like a jail. We're not in trouble. We're just homeless. We're people.
Yes.
And then nobody's listening to any of it, anybody.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing. And I think that's what's so important, is to be willing to go and organize with with your compatriots right here and be able to share that experience of, I think that's a very fair question to ask. And like, that can be the source of your lobbying or advocacy. Where do you want me to go? There's nowhere for me to go.
Right.
What do you want me to do? Jennifer, and then I'm gonna move us along.
Oh,
because
no,
I don't
I
wanna
just
take
want
too
to
much.
say, like really, wherever you're from, wherever you live, like, you gotta show up at the city council meetings. Because they're the ones that, like Clearwater, they're the ones that made the decision for $84 million to go at Sound and New Customer Park, when they didn't even think about using any of that money for the homeless. So we gotta show up, just like Cal said during the information, we gotta show up at those meetings. Tell our stories.
Absolutely, thank you, Jennifer.
You're welcome.
So, so again, more about how we lobby. Some of the things that decision makers are have in their minds, just generally. If you're a politician, or an elected official, a lot of the times they're thinking, how do I keep my job? How do I win re-election the next time? We have term limits in a lot of areas. Our Pinellas County commissioners don't have term limits. So for them, that's especially true, they can continue their career indefinitely. Generally, I'm gonna come to you in 1 second. Decision makers are looking for broad support. And so what I mean by that is, most decision makers are looking for a wide swath of people. Even if that wide swath of people has generally loose support, they're gonna favor that over, they're gonna favor having 50% of people kind of like them versus 10% of people who really like them. Because that 50% of people also leads to this goal right here, an extended career, if you're an elected official. What were you gonna?
Yes, the broad support for becoming up law in this state, banning public camping. There's technically broad support for actually that occurring among business groups and politicians. So how can we turn that around for us to make a counter argument? Because that's what we have to do in order to lobby them for this particular issue. So how do we come up with a counter argument if there's broad support?
Yeah, that's a great question. So essentially what they've done is they've built essentially a coalition of different groups who have determined that it is within their collective interest to pursue legislation like this anti-camping. And so that's what I mean when I talk about organizing, is taking folks like yourselves, having conversations amongst yourselves and with other folks who have experienced homelessness, but who are the connected groups that are willing to stand with you and ask for the same things that might have a slightly different perspective. Faith in Florida is an example of that. We try to bring people together of faith, no matter what faith you are, because we believe that there's a shared belief in justice and a shared belief in humanity and people have dignity. I believe it was Dolores who said, we're people. All of us are people. Whether we sleep with a roof over our head or not, we're all human beings and we deserve respect. So some of the things that decision makers are going to avoid are kind of like the flip side of this. They don't want bad publicity. They don't want the news story about how they are punishing folks dealing with homelessness. I don't know how many of you saw some folks that were experiencing homelessness that were staying at Allendale United Methodist Church. It's a church in St. Petersburg. One of the reasons why they were allowed to stay there, I'll just be quite honest with you, is because there was a leader at that church, Pastor Andy, who was willing to say, if you do anything to these folks, I'm going to smear it all over the media. So, and you don't want that kind of publicity, city of St. Petersburg. They also don't want to be seen as aligning themselves with policies that seem too radical. This is something that we often have to push back against, right? Because some of the policies that are considered radical are actually just addressing inequalities that have been there for so long. So for instance, folks, an example is rent control. As some people see rent control as radical, I see $1,000 rent increases as radical.
Yeah.
And so we need to be able to flip that type of narrative with folks. Okay. You want to talk about this?
Yeah, I'll chat super briefly about this. So how many of you guys have heard about the new stadium? Down in downtown St. Pete, okay. And you also mentioned, is that a music venue?
Yeah.
In
it's,
Clearwater?
Yeah, it's a new little mini amphitheater. It's
Right.
really nice. I mean, it's nice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so this is happening all over the state, guys, right? Where cities, municipalities, whether it's the city council or the mayor or whoever's vision it is, they will pursue, tourism and entertainment while we have serious needs right here. The needs in this room, even up to people that are housed that have very serious needs, struggling under rent burden. We have some flooding issues in the city as well.
Address the problem, there is a homeless problem,
Right.
address that at the meetings, but then.
Exactly.
Approve $84 million for.
Right. So there's this like almost whiplash where you feel crazy because they're talking about their plans to address these serious issues and in the same breath talking about how they're gonna spend hundreds of millions, tens of millions on new things to bring tourism and energy into the city. So a struggle that Faith in Florida has been holding up for the past year and a half or so is downtown in St. Pete. They're willing to redevelop this huge swath of land right in the heart of downtown. It was historically black, displaced a bunch of folks to put a stadium there. Now it's just a parking lot with a team that can't bring in attendance.
Yeah.
They want to redevelop it and put a mixed-use development around it, hotels, office space, 7,000 rental units, only 10% of them are affordable, right? So these are the kinds of things we oppose, and we use lobbying and advocacy as ways to show up in the public square and present opposition to these kinds of projects. This project hasn't gone through yet. There's discussions about it being finalized this summer, but they've also pushed it back 3 times. So right now, I think the best example of lobbying or advocacy with this project is, we talked a little bit about the Community Benefits Council earlier, right? And they're kind of like an authority on community benefits, so they get to say, we see a couple benefits coming out of this, we think it justifies the public money that we're spending on it. So during that process, although we didn't get the result that we wanted, which was for the Community Benefits Council to completely strike it down, there was a bit of a divided vote on it, and we did see 5 to 6 resident-friendly, housing-friendly motions come out of that process. Things like protecting our public wealth from inflation, moving up the timeline for affordable housing, and inflicting stronger penalties if the developer in these projects didn't build affordable housing. And how we got that done was through sending in letters through the city to the advisory council, showing up at each meeting with a stronger presence each time, right? The first time they met at City Hall, we had about 12 people in the room. It was the city, the developer, and like 2 of us. And then over the course of 5 weeks, we overfilled both the chamber and the overflow room. So it took hundreds of voices to get those motions passed and even bring some more conservative people across the fence on that council, right? Now, whether the city implements these motions into their approval of the deal is another lobbying journey that we'll have to take. But I put this here as just an example of how when we show up to city council and show up to these boards that make these decisions, they need to hear resident perspectives. They need to hear from people like you, because the way that the deal looked before those 5 weeks, it would have went through just like that. And it's because so many of these people, like, we know there's a little bit of evil going on, but we also know that so many of these people just don't know what it's like to struggle with housing. They just don't know what it's like to count pennies. They don't know what it's like to choose groceries one month and daycare another month, right? So when they hear from us, this is how residents see it. This is how we define community benefits. This is how we define affordable housing. Affordable housing isn't $1,500 for a 2-bedroom. That's not how we define it, right? So our definitions are important. Our perspectives are important, so that this was a way for us to show up and kind of give in resident perspectives, giving local research, giving public testimony, and bargaining with the Community Benefits Council so that they can, you know, put some resident-friendly things in this redevelopment.
Skip through. So actually, a question I want to ask as we kind of come to the end here, I don't want to take up too much time. So what are some things that we could get from lobbying against this anti-camping bill that's not just a complete reversal of the anti-camping bill? Some of them have already been said.
More funding.
More funding for what?
Just mental health, affordable housing, and more shelters.
Dolores?
A place where we can actually go and not be harassed by law enforcement and not be made fun of other people in the public that think that we're low-life citizens, because we're just as much as a citizen as the next person.
There you go.
I was in psychology class when it was SPJC, I'm 69 and a half, at this Maslow's theory of hierarchy.
Yep.
And I was at Pinellas Health and Safe Harbor last year. Now, you cannot go to the next level until your basic needs have been met. People need to have a roof over their head, they need to have food, they need to have water before they can advance to the next level. So if you're homeless at God awful Pinellas Hope or Safe Harbor, it's hard to get your life together and go out and get a job.
Right.
And Maslow's theory of hierarchy has been around forever. Maslow's theory of hierarchy.
Sorry, I pushed that one too many times.
Hold on.
I already got an
This is
extra.
amazing.
Is it?
Oh, there you go, there you go.
Okay, here you go, sorry.
Maslow's theory of hierarchy, like I said, I related to SPJC back in 1990. I'm 69 years old. You cannot advance to the next level until your basic needs are met. That's in any psychology book. That is a written fact throughout the whole world. Like I said, I had a god-awful experience of being at Pinellas Hope last year and Safe Harbor, and bouncing around in between because people would only let me stay at their place for one night. So I'm all for helping people to get their basic needs met, and then you move on to the next one. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. And
Well,
what,
that's why there has to be a coordinated program, as you said, from the basic level and follow through to the housing. Because the housing is the critical must.
Yeah, yeah.
That's what you have to have.
People need it.
Yeah. Because in all the other things, if you don't have the housing in the end, it's not gonna work. You're not
That
gonna,
needs to
you're
be
not
a
gonna.
top priority,
Yeah.
people having a safe, clean roof over their heads.
what I'm hearing is great talking points for when you are lobbying
Yeah.
and advocating. And like you did, and it, like what all of you just said was perfect examples of advocacy. You told about your experience, you told about why it's important. And the other thing is you spoke to, because the elected officials who passed this are saying that they're doing this for y'all. They're saying that they're doing it to help y'all.
Yeah.
So it's really important for them to hear you're not actually helping us. This is what we really need. We need housing, we need mental health services, we need to be treated like human beings.
I have texted DeSantis, I would vote for DeSantis again. I have texted DeSantis because I'm not tech savvy and everything. And I said I would vote for you again. However, you do not have any right to run for president of the United States because you have not taken care of the senior citizens in the state of Florida, or the homeless, or the veterans, or the disabled. Because you have not focused on that, do not even run for president of the United States.
You're supposed to be working, you're applying for a candidacy for a commission, right?
In St. Petersburg, yes.
Okay.
So I'm giving you all the tools for you guys to come and lobby and
We're
have
gonna
it
lobby
see
the hell
me
out of it.
if
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
successful.
Okay, my question is that you've lived here most of your life, so
I've lived here for a number of years, yes.
a number of years.
Yes, not most of my life, but for a number of years.
Well, most of us here in this room, we're not surprised, have lived here all their lives.
Yeah.
Okay? Granted, I'm transferring from 78, but that's beside the point.
I'm transplanted for almost 3 years.
Okay. I've lived here. And I have seen St. Pete go from the best city in the area of that helps people to the worst place in the world right now, because you can't find nothing, I mean literally nothing. No housing, no help, nowhere, and not even through the HLA, because I have had several people put things in the HLA, and nobody's got returns. So where are we supposed to go? Really, seriously? Police harass us. We get harassed all the time. I don't bother nobody. I'm a quiet person. I stay myself. I go to the church on Trinity. I was married in 60th Street Baptist Church in 1979.
Oh.
Okay, so I know. I mean, there used to be, in Pinellas Park, there used to be horses and cows and everything else. The city's taken over. Where? You tell me and I'll go. I'll lobby. I don't care. I have a business degree, business and management. I mean, I'll work my butt off, but for the rest of these people don't have nothing. I don't need nothing. But what I mean is they don't have nobody else to talk to.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that folks need housing. Folks need a place to go. Folks need a safe place to go. Yes.
Lobbying is something that definitely needs to be done.
Oh.
Hold on a second.
Give him the mic.
I'm trying. We have.
Lobbying is definitely something that needs to be done. But public forum has to come first, because these officials are not going to sit there,
Yes.
because what they're hearing from the general public is we don't want these homeless people on the streets.
Yeah.
So somewhere along the way, we need to get the media. We need to have people who are homeless on the news
Yeah.
and giving their stories so people can hear. Because the vast majority of the public out there has this opinion that if you're homeless, it's your fault.
Yeah.
Somewhere along the way, you were a drug addict, there was some situation that put you on the streets. They don't see as, my father, when he came to Florida, he had a job.
Yeah.
But as soon as he got here, Florida has boom and bust. And he went to bust. Yeah. And we were, by the grace of God, not homeless, because we had relatives who took us in. But that doesn't happen anymore. This is what somebody has got to understand. There is no family situation anymore. Family is like mom, dad, and the kids, okay? Grandpa, grandma, they're in a nursing home, okay? And, I mean, if they can afford it, if they can't afford it, they're on the streets. And this is what the general public needs to hear. And until we can do that, we're not going to convince anybody by lobbying, because they're not even listening to us.
Yeah.
They're sitting there looking at it and saying, the general public does not want people sleeping on the street. Okay, well, hey, give them a place to sleep. Well, they have places to sleep, we could put, and then the other problem is too, that the legal system doesn't do what it's supposed to.
So.
There are too many problems with the legal system, we can't even go there, okay?
So.
Because, yes.
Sorry, I hate we're actually gonna have a breakout group where we talk about video interviews.
Okay.
Could you join that breakout group? And,
Yes.
we do have one more question and we do have to get to those
All right,
breakout
well,
groups. So
let's go ahead.
thank you very much. I do very much want you to join that breakout group, but make sure that you share all of that with them, because that's really important stuff. And then we have one more question for Cassandra, and then I'm gonna ask Nick to,
Wrap
go
it up.
ahead and continue on.
Hi, my name is Johnny. About 9 years ago, I was involved with a church called the Solid Rock Church in Cincinnati. It is off of Bishop Ford Avenue North. The pastor asked me if I would run the women's shelter. Okay, and the women's shelter, the women were in dope, drugs, whatever, and they were allowed to eat. I also at night was homeless for 3 years. I ran the women's shelter for 3 years. And, they weren't allowed in, they were doing drugs, they were suspended. What happened was they would get tested, they would go to Turning Point. I also worked at Turning Point for the homeless. And you gotta have a lot of compassion because everybody deserves to lay their head and sleep. Everybody on this earth. I don't care where you're from, what color you are, what you believe in. There's a lot of mental health issues. I go Monday through Friday to White School, to Trinity Cafe and Northwest Church. I also go to Mennonite Ministries on Saturdays, and I go to a church called City of the Hill in St. Pete. We get it, about the homeless. I am angry at these officials. We need somebody that's got money, that cares, that's like you. I don't know much about you, but I believe you're somebody different. But like I found out last Saturday, Paul Kogan, who goes to Indian Rocks Baptist Church where my grandchildren go, he saved a woman's life and just in her airbag. He saved it with an Indian Rocks pin. And he is a Christian man. He's got a lot of money. He is trying as well to help homeless people that are without. And I've done this for a long time as well as some other people here. I agree. We need to lobby because if there's the more we lobby, does anybody here know back in the day when Sheriff Edward Rice was in office? Okay, well, I took my Jeep Cherokee and I put like 4 homeless people in my Jeep. We made up signs, they were scared to get out and protest in front of the sheriff. And those said, you're worried about getting me arrested, taking your tag number and everything. And, but we were put on the news. Okay, so that made a big impact. Now, I moved away, I had to move away and go to the state, it's not in all of the United States. And, the pastor that was running that particular church, his wife passed away, married his son, and he sold all of his, I believe he's got 2 or 3 recovery. They're like duplexes, like with 3 bedrooms, 3 or 4 with beds, different things. And they're allowed to go there, pay rent, but they're allowed to wait to get a job, get their health in check first, and all the above. But I don't know of any more places that would do that at this point. I'm still searching that out and still talking to quite a few people on that. But a lot has got to be done. I am a voter, so I don't like how they set it up. I don't like police harassing people. I don't get harassed at all. But for the women out there that do get harassed or beat up or something, you can always go into passive or battered women, which I've been a member of for 25 years. And they have wonderful people, but so far there's only 2 places that they can stay for women. And one downtown, one somewhere else, and I can't tell the location. But those are good options for women, because the women are the ones that get murdered, stabbed, all of the above. Men can take care of themselves most of the time, but a lot more has got to be done. And we have a caring pastor who welcomes everybody in. Bus passes need to be given out to people all the time for free. It should never be a hassle. Never. Food should always be available. All the time. If they're afraid they're gonna be stressed, well, my God, why don't they just give them a card, say, here, go get yourself a hot meal, a Publix, or Wendy's somewhere. But I agree, something more has to be done.
Thank you. You know, as we kind of come towards a close, like, one of the things that I really want to emphasize is how important, what was your name again? Romeo. I think one of the things that Romeo and a number of you have really pointed out is that advocacy, lobbying is best done in a strategy, in a larger strategy, because like, it includes talking to elected officials, but it includes what you were saying of going and talking to your neighbors, going and talking to the media of, hey, are you tired of having unhoused people like live like around your house? Well, I can tell you the solution is not to put those, like, sweep those folks under the rug. The solution is to get those folks into homes. We need to find out what
Solution is come with
what
us
type of
to
thing.
lobby.
There you go. And so like, another thing that was touched on is, that this slide talks about a little bit, right? We kind of talked about the influence of money in all of this. And the honest truth is that there is enough money to address it. And organizations like HLA, who I'm proud to be a part of, are standing in the gap in a position that they are not fully equipped to do, because they're serving as a Band-Aid to a bullet wound, right? And so we won't ever be able to address issues like homelessness and the cost of housing if the only tools that we use are funneling money back into the people who are already creating the problem. And I'll just say as an example, St. Petersburg has a budget of $800 million annually. Pinellas County has a much larger budget than that. And I think it's just important to recognize again that there is enough money, and Dylan's example of the historic gas plant, an example of the sound in Clearwater. These are the type of examples that really brought it home for me. St. Petersburg is able to find $730 million for a baseball stadium. That money could fix homelessness effectively in St. Petersburg.
And give it away for free, right? Let them have it, let them have the land for free.
Yeah, not free, but at a severe discount, yes.
Severe.
So all told, we're talking about $1.6 billion. I think the sound was $84 million. And the other thing I just want to say is that money, that $84 million, that 700 something million dollars that I'm talking about, that $800 million annually, that's all of our money.
Yes.
That's all of our money.
You all create that wealth.
So, to close this out, we just have a little toolkit with just some things to remember when you're lobbying, when you're advocating. We're gonna make Victoria already has these slides, but we'll have them for them. Be yourself up there. You don't have to be the college professor talking up there. You are an expert in your story, in your experience. Use your strongest relationships. Lean into the people around you today. Lean into Dylan and I. Lean into your pastor. Tell your pastor, hey, I know you're doing great work to help serve underserved people. I need you to keep doing that. I need you to come with me to county commission or city hall. I need your help. I need you to talk to the congregation.
I need you to join the Pinellas Continuum of Care.
Especially businesses.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that. Be bold but firm. or what's the blank for?
This is just, I just put this here because a lot of people, when they hear terms like lobbying and advocacy, they always think, oh, I don't want to be seen as a rabble rouser. I don't want them to think I'm mean. I don't want to be seen as someone that's against the city or against the county or whatever. But I'm telling you, you can be as gentle or loving or supportive as you want and still be firm, right? If I need something from Nick and Nick is paid to take care of me, Nick shouldn't get to tell me how, I ask, or like what I wear when I come and ask him. I go to Nick and I say, hey, I see that you're working really hard. I know you got your hands full. I know you have priorities, but you got to take care of me. And one of my priorities is this, right? This anti-sleeping ordinance, or reducing police impact, right? Funneling money into the places, taking money out of bad actors and giving them to good actors, right? So making sure, just to put it out there, you don't have to sacrifice your values to lobby, right? If you're thinking, oh, this is a good idea, but I don't want to do it because I don't want to be a bully. You don't have to sacrifice any of those things to lobby. You can lobby your elected officials and these appointed leaders and still be yourself.
A joke that I make, I'm a Christian, so I make this type of joke often. It's that I'm a New Testament person and some people are Old Testament people. So I generally come with like a more even keel, but there are more fire and brimstone people.
No cuss words.
It's important to have both of those. The only thing I would say is just be strategic in when you're going to like go there and be fiery. Because at the end of the day, remember, if you're going to, ultimately you're asking these folks to do something for you. So if you want someone to do something for you, you're generally not going to go and insult them and yell at them and say, and by the way, can you help me out with this thing? Love is an action word. Like for me, what y'all have said over and over again in this space is about we're humans, we're people, we deserve dignity. That to me is love, and showing up for people and saying they deserve this because they're a human, because they're my neighbor.
Yeah.
And then finally, if you're uncertain what to say, share your story. Default to your experience. This is what I've been through. This is what would help me. This is what would have helped me. You are an expert in homelessness and housing. Don't let anyone tell you that you're not.
My job. Yeah.
One more question?
Mike understands grief.
At the CSC meeting we had, there was a woman who was homeless, and this is the meeting for the task force about the camping that's coming in. And she is very, very vocal, very loud, and she was concerned about the end result, which is police harassment. So, and I mean loud. And I'm thinking, yes, we need to be bold, but maybe not that bold. But how do we make people respond? Because we don't have good stories. We all have very personal stories of what it's like out there versus what it's like where you are in the city council hall in your $300,000 home.
Right,
and-
right.
And more.
So how do we, without influence with money, going to convince people or try to persuade people now with either stories or facts, which actually works better in terms of persuading, because we got stories, the Lord. You
Yeah.
can write a book, all these stories,
Okay.
but it's not gonna make a difference unless we have people listening to us.
Yeah, that's good, and I'm eager to hear some more thoughts around this, but to the first part of your question, I just wanna set the record straight. When we're fighting for homeless folks, for you guys, when we're lobbying and organizing for you, with you, we are not in charge. You know what I'm saying? We don't control your destiny. If you feel represented by someone that is just yelling and you feel like they could benefit from a different type of strategy, it's so perfectly okay to tell the organizer, that doesn't represent me. And I don't feel like you're representing me well. Please tell me that, tell Nick that, and anyone else, where if you're partnering with someone that's trying to fight for you, and they go in there and they don't do what you discussed, please tell them, right? Keep them accountable, because this isn't possible without you guys. Again, you're the expert in this, it's your story, and if we're gonna fight with you, then please make sure the people that you have in your company are like listening to you and engaging with you and having conversations. Don't let people use you. Yeah. Thank you.
Call both of them.
Okay, I don't know how this is gonna work. Yeah, so, yes, thank you, Dylan. And I think like maybe an even simpler way of saying is relationships. Like I wasn't there for that. I did get the chance to hear about that story this morning. And the example of how it was handled is exactly how I think it should be handled. It was Daisy was able to go and eventually just like have a calm conversation with this person. And having the respect to realize that someone was upset and to not dismiss that, but say, I see that you're upset, like, let's talk about it. You know, it's relationships. It's the same with organizing more people to get you to go lobby. And it's the same with our elected officials, is they are more likely to respond to you if they feel that they have a relationship with you. And so like, prioritize that. Again, don't sell yourself out, be authentic, be yourself, be in a relationship if you're not a true relationship, if you're not being authentic. And then what I would say is, this is gonna be my nerdy scientist side coming out. Humans are hardwired to respond to narrative and stories. And so while I think it's a little bit of both of stories and facts, like facts are important, right? But people respond to like, what does this fact you're citing, like, how does it show up in the world? And facts and figures just generally don't have the same oomph, and that's part of the reason why we encourage y'all to lean into your experience. It doesn't mean you shouldn't do research and educate yourselves to know some of those facts and figures and data. I think that is important, but it should always be grounded in experience and relationship.
Because officials know, by the way, the fact that you're collected, they already know. And what they can't argue with you about is what you've been through. They can argue facts all day and the perspective of the facts and the data, but they can't argue with you about what you've seen, what you felt, all the nights, right? They can't argue with you about that. And the facts that you bring most of the time, they have a decent picture of it. They know it.
Okay, I'm going to wrap up because I'm taking way too much.
Thanks, Nick.
Thank you very much.
I need to do this too.
Yeah, perfect.
You can't hear me yet, North. All right.
American Idol invoice.
Hello. All right. Thank you guys so much for that. I don't know about y'all, but I feel a little bit better discussing advocacy as a group, deciding how this group is going to advocate by deciding, I don't need me, I need y'all deciding, how this group is gonna advocate. That was absolutely fantastic. I cannot thank you guys enough for that. So let's see, what time is it right now? Somebody have time? 6:40. Oh, you mean there's a clock right there on the wall?
You're good. That is what that is.
just wanted to say something real quick. Sorry. I just wanted to say thank you for the presentation. Sorry, my voice is in and out. I thought it was really informative. It really made me think about the task force, like it was being mentioned, and how we can advocate better. And I did invite that person at the meeting to this particular advocacy group. And I don't think they showed up today, but it's okay. I did tell them that if this was the perfect space for them to voice what they wanted to say, and I invited them here, and hopefully she'll be able to come at some point. But I do appreciate what was said in the room, that it's important to have a voice, but it doesn't always have to be the loudest voice. It just has to be some meaningful background to it, so that things could get across the right way. But yeah, thank you again for the presentation. It was really helpful.
Thank you. We're all surprised to hear Daisy's voice there as well. Thank you very much, Daisy. Okay, so since we have 20 minutes left, I think the thing to do is we do have a couple of action items that we need to address on today's agenda. So if we could please go to the consent agenda, Madam Secretary, do you mind calling for a vote? All right. There are a couple extra steps. If anybody else needs an agenda. All right.
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Do we have a motion?
Do we have a motion?
You have to call for one.
Okay, I will call for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Oh, that's first. Okay. Now we need a second.
Do I have a second?
Second. Thank you. I very much appreciate that, but it does have to be a registered committee member. So from a registered committee
Can I
member.
get a second? Thank you, Melody.
Thank you very much. All in favor, say aye.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Opposed.
All right.
Wise guy.
Thank you very much, Wilson.
I go, yeah, I didn't really have a chance.
Thank you very much. All right. So now that we've done that, the next thing on our agenda, sorry, Mike. All right, so the next thing that we have is our LEAC co-chair election. So as you all know, Wayne, or as many of you know, Wayne and Mike here were elected to serve as co-chairs of this committee. Unfortunately, Wayne had to step back due to some personal reasons. I would hope to see him in another meeting sometime soon. But that means there's a vacancy in our leadership. So, Gary over here has submitted a nomination to join and serve as the second co-chair through the end of December, which is of course when Mike's term ends as well. We also had a nomination from Rick Cipriani, who is not here today. He is out of town today. He was ready to be in the other meeting, but unfortunately he was out of town for today's reschedule. And so both of them have submitted applications. You do have some of their information in the agenda packet. And I will absolutely, since Rick is not with us today, give Gary a moment to talk in just a minute, so y'all can hear from him, and we'll go ahead and do a vote. But I wanted to ask, do we have any nominations from the floor? And what that means is, are there any current committee members here today, other than Gary, of course, because he's already submitted his application, Kat, because she's already our secretary, and Mike, because he was already elected, who would like to serve as co-chair? All right, going once? All right. Okay, well, in that case, Mr. Small, you are our nominee. Would you like an opportunity to speak? All right, Mr. Small, you can have a couple minutes. There you go.
Hello, everyone. So I serve on the board, and I do not feel that the duty between the board and this will conflict between the duty. I want to try and make a difference as we all did not
was short. All right. And then because he's not here, I'll just go ahead and I will read a little bit of information about Rick. Rick works at Pinellas as the Director of Government Relations. He also has lived experience and is affiliated with organizations like Safety Free Clinic, 211 Tampa Bay Care, St. Vincent de Paul, and other organizations like that. Unfortunately, you cannot ask Rick any questions today because he's not with us. But does anybody have any questions for Gary before we go to a vote?
I'm gonna say, abstain from voting since I'm already co-chair, but should we wait till, chair comes back?
Again,
Or is he paid with?
he 100% had the opportunity. He told me he was going to join online, so.
Oh,
Good question. I appreciate that. I appreciate that call very, very, very much. So that question, just as a recap, was, I was wondering if we should wait until Rick is here to cast this vote. My response was that I suggest we move forward with the vote today because there is an absence as a co-chair, and Robert was aware of the schedule and planned to join online. I'm not sure what happened there. But so I would like to move forward with the vote, if that is okay with the entire committee. I don't want to make any unilateral decisions. They're not really my name. Is there anybody opposed to doing that vote today? You're a troublemaker. I'm gonna keep that in mind. All right, so you're about to pass. All right, well, with that in mind, do we have a motion to accept either of these nominations?
I said Gary's mom.
Okay, a motion to accept Gary. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, I'm not gonna make you do that on the microphone. We do have a second. All right, so that is a first and a second for Gary's nomination to serve as co-chair. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. And is there anybody who would like to abstain on the record? Like, you want to abstain for the record?
Yeah.
Okay, abstain, by the way, means you are neither voting yes or no, you're just saying, I was here and I'm choosing not to. So perfect. Thank you very much, Madam Secretary. Did you mark that down?
Yes, ma'am.
Perfect. Well then, congratulations, Co-Chair Gary Smalls. Next on the agenda, with the next few minutes, we have discussion of a charter revision. So currently, our CSP charter, our lived experience charter discusses membership. This is on page 7 of your packet. So currently, our charter discusses membership, discusses what types of members we should have in this group. But there is no limitation on members. There is no minimum or maximum member. So your secretary Pat and I have chatted, and then I chatted with Mike over here about going ahead and changing that to a between 5 and 20 individuals. We are recommending that because one, it helps us make sure that we are really getting work done here in these committees. It's wonderful to have new folks, but we never ever say no to folks coming in and participating. But as far as voting committee members, we really want a steady, stable base so that we can really get work done meeting after meeting. Also, I just gotta be totally honest with you. I wish that I had the funding to pay 200 stipends a week. I really, really do. Unfortunately, so that is one of the other reasons for this recommendation. So this recommendation is again to change, to add language in the charter, really just one sentence, I highlighted it, or maybe 2 sentences. But it is just saying that we are going to have between 5 and 20 members. It does not change quorum. Quorum is still 51% of the members. So if we have 20 members, we need 11 folks at a meeting, and that is quorum. That means we can do votes and things like that. If we have 8 members at a meeting, we only have 20 members total. We don't have quorum, we can't do any of these votes. So that is what that change is. Does anybody have any questions about that?
We're talking about voting members, right?
Yes,
Not just people who show up.
absolutely. That is a
Okay.
great point of clarification.
Okay, and amongst those 5 and 20, we're still gonna adhere to what is, all these requirements, do this and do that, and what this, and so on, and so.
Great question.
Yeah.
Great question. By the way, you're a great artist. Okay, so we do not require these specific members, but those are the recommended membership types that this group identified. So this group identified wanting to have seniors here, folks with disabilities, folks from the LGBTQIA+ community and things like that. So this does not have any bearing on that. That does not change, and we still want to go ahead and have a diverse group as we discussed in previous meetings. Thank you very much for clarifying. Any other questions? No? All right. Is there anybody who is, oh, sorry.
Well, I missed last month because we had the complications. So, I don't feel like me coming here, or just any other person. I can make a big thing, like, does anyone have connections with anybody that knows anybody? I used to be friends with somebody with channel 15 News in Tampa. So, that was a good person, that was caring, that cared about people. As I do believe right here, where we live, there are enough people that really do care, that really do want to work. I do know that for a fact. Even my pastor, Antoine, at Trinity Cafe, he tries everything to help. And you know that.
I know that.
You know that. Okay, so why, and there's gotta be a way to find money to do, like, to get groups like this, like at a park, where we get to know other people here, and not just some random people, because we're not random people. And get to know people much better, and then, like you said, lobbying, we have to do it. I am a voter, so is that. I know Ron, here, a lot of people here are. And, yeah, we can do something. I would not be afraid at all to bring somebody who needs me in here and sit them down with some experiences. Look, ain't on your side, and keep up.
So do you have any questions about the charter revision?
Yes.
That's what we're addressing right now.
Well, on the charter provision, I'm not completely understanding.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Yes. So, and this, by the way, is something that registered committee members will vote on. I just want everybody to understand what's going on. But registered committee members will vote on this. So we have a charter. Our charter is our committee's bylaws. I did not write this charter. This charter was established by things that happened in early meetings, during the first 4 or 5 months of our meetings. And that establishes us as a committee. It establishes goals for membership, it establishes goals for leadership, it establishes goals, and is really the backbone of what we're doing. It's what gives us legitimacy, So that's the charter. The revision that we are suggesting is a cap on members. That does not mean we are suggesting that fewer people come and participate in meetings. We can cap it at 20 members and still have 30 people in the room participating. And we will only have 20 voting members in that case. Did that answer your question? Okay, perfect. Do we have any other questions?
I'd like to table a motion to amend the charter to put a cap on members and maybe cap it out between 20 to 25 people.
Okay, so tabling a motion, we will talk about it later. Do you want to make a motion for this one?
Make the motion.
Okay, so you're making a motion. Are you making a motion to make it different than this?
No.
Okay.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to amend the charter to put a cap on membership at 20 members.
Thank you very much, Madam Secretary. Do we have a second?
Second.
Norm is a second. Thank you very much. Did you have a question? Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Anybody who would like to abstain, which again means you are neither voting yes or no. All right. Did you get that done? All right, perfect. So that will be effective, well, starting now, basically, but I'll go ahead and I'll update that charter, and I will get that new charter out, to the executive committee. Once they approve that change, I will send it out to everybody else. So thank you very, very much.
Excuse me, it'll only be effective after they approve it?
Yes,
Oh,
and they will meet on the first Friday of the month, so I'll go ahead and add that to that agenda. It'll only be a couple of weeks, and I'll send the new charter out once approved.
okay.
All right. So we have 5 minutes left. We are not gonna have time to, oh, sir. Okay, let's take track of this action. We are unfortunately not gonna have time to dive into our, handout and our interview questions for today, at least not on the clock. I don't mind hanging out for a little bit to talk about that stuff, okay? But, I do want to, it looks like Madam Secretary has something that she wanted to share as far as advocacy is concerned. No, you just wanted everybody to read that? Okay, all right. She did hand out something to
Yeah, I would like everyone to read it so that I would like everyone to at least read the information they were given today, so that when we do start putting together our handout, everyone has some information, some basic information to work with. And we will be getting more statistics as we can.
Okay.
So in essence, the topics that you didn't do today, we will put on the agenda for next time?
That is a great question, Norm, and the answer is yes.
Okay.
Norm, you're on fire today.
All right, okay.
Absolutely, we were going to address this during our next meeting.
Okay.
So I do, if anybody wants to talk about those interview questions, if anybody wants to talk about that, flyer, we can absolutely, chat about it. We can also, if you want to, our next meeting is on the 11th. If it was a month out, I was gonna suggest we could even do a special little work group where we can come together. But we're meeting again on the 11th, that's pretty soon.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like we have most of our agenda for the next meeting, don't we? All right, that is awesome. Well, in that case, Madam Secretary or Sir Chairs, do you have anything else that you would like to add to the meeting? Oh, Jennifer, hold on.
So the next meeting is June 11th.
Yes, the next meeting will be June 11th, and I will send out a new calendar invitation for that meeting following that. We voted on the new schedule during our last meeting, so the next meeting.
The second Thursday.
Yes, second Thursday. That's Tuesday. Why do I keep trying to make it Tuesday?
June 13th.
I'm so glad that you are checking me.
Thank you, God.
No.
ADHD and OCD.
Y'all, I've never seen a calendar before. I don't know. And it's June 13th. Don't show up. I will not be here on June 11th. You can come, but I will not be here. June 13th, we'll meet on Thursdays. We never meet on Tuesdays. We meet on Thursday.
It's the second Tuesday always for the
Yes,
last 3
yes.
years?
Second Thursday,
I'm
second
sorry,
Thursday.
second Thursday.
That's okay. That's not your fault, Laura. That's not. I did that to you.
Oh, okay.
Listen, I know my mistakes.
Okay.
All right, do we have any other questions or anything anybody would like to share for the good of the group? All right, well, with that in mind, I will pass it off to Mike to close it out.
All right, close the meeting. I just want to thank again our guests and Faith, helped us with the core advocacy. And we will continue that in the next session, next meeting. If that is the case, no more questions, the meeting is now considered closed and adjourned.
Perfect. All right. Thank you guys so much. And just when you go home, think about these interview questions that we're gonna do while you're sleeping, while you're hanging out with friends. Talk to them. Find out what they would like to do. These interviews, we're gonna ask people only people who are comfortable to do these 2 to 5 minute video interviews so that we can share them on social media, so that we can share them with the media. So that when ABC Action News calls me and says, can we talk to somebody experiencing homelessness about this anti-camping law? I say, well, I'll tell you what, I've already done that. So please think about that. Think about what you want to see way, think about what you think people don't know. What you think people should know, what you think might make people care. You should not have to make people care, but I have to. That's my soapbox.
I was just saying, like, you're gonna have to be the one to call action news.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good night.
Actually, they call me.
Do they?
Yes.
Good, 'cause
Yeah, it
I
is.
telling them my story
It is.
about Safe Harbor when I first got there. And they were like,
This also applies to the flyer, doesn't
Yes,
it?
yes, absolutely. And that's a great question that Jennifer was asked. ABC Action News does call me. I don't have to call them, they do call me. So we can actually get some work done, okay? All right. I will see you all on the 13th, not the 11th, the 13th.
I love that, it's a year, it's exactly a year.
That is exactly a year. That is wonderful. June 13th will be our 1-year anniversary.
Oh.
Thank you.
Oh. Never mind. Next month.